Hi and welcome to episode 14 of season 4 of A Brief History of Nothing on the 2nd of August. And what happened on this day?
Right, in 338 BCE, the Macedonians defeat the combined forces of Athens and Thebes at the Battle of...
I think it's Caroni, but we're probably just butchering that.
Yeah, probably
butchered that. English is hard, don't ask us about Greek.
Yeah, that's even harder. Leading to the Macedonian rule of Greece and the Aegean, i.e. Crete, Cyprus, etc. In 1776, the United States Declaration of Independence was signed. In 1869, the Japanese, yep. Japanese is really hard to. The Japanese samurai class system was abolished by the Meiji Restoration. In 1934, Adolf Hitler became Führer of Germany. In 1939, Albert Einstein and Leo Szilard wrote a letter to Franklin D. Roosevelt asking him to start the Manhattan Project.
I like how they tried to beat Germany into making a nuclear weapon and then use those nuclear weapons on Japan.
Yes. Okay, well,
yeah.
Germany went
yeah.
first. In 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait, starting the first Gulf War. Now, tonight's subject is well-known people with autism. Now, if you're on the autistic spectrum somewhere, you'll probably know someone who is. It can be a bit of a pain to live with that, either as the sufferer or as someone living with somebody who suffers from it. James will talk about some well-known examples.
Yes, well, you've probably heard of a guy called Dan Aykroyd, and you probably know that he's associated with another thing called Ghostbusters. He actually came up with it because a lot of autistic people, and as an autistic person I know about fixations.
Yes.
Yes. Well, he had a fixation with ghosts and also police, as in not the band, but actually going around arresting people, police. And so he sort of put them together.
And came up with Ghostbusters.
And came up with Ghostbusters, going around basically arresting ghosts, essentially.
Well, you know, it's earned him the odd dollar.
Yeah, I mean, he's not exactly struggling these days.
No, and also the skull bottles of vodka are his as well.
No, are they?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. But yes, so he's made quite a lot of money from the movies and video games and other merchandise.
Yes. Yep. And now, Temple Grandin. What did Dr. Temple Grandin?
Well, she. Another common thing with autism is I often find animals comforting because there's a lot of social anxiety and very hard to have social relationships, and so a lot of autistic people find animals comforting. And of course because she saw different to a lot of people around her, she could understand why cattle were balking in corrals and why they were drowning in dips and so forth. And so it took a while for people to actually believe it, and if you can find the movie Temple Grandin, I highly recommend it. She basically fixed the American meat industry. It was very inhumane. It took several goes for animals to die. The abattoirs and a lot of other things in North America are much, much better because of her.
Okay, now, what about the chap that grew up on the outskirts of Tokyo?
Yeah, you probably haven't heard of him. Satoshi Tajiri. English is hard, Japanese is harder.
Yes, we were having a bit of a fall over Japanese and Greek this evening.
Yes, but you may have heard of what he invented. A little thing called Pokemon.
Yes. Quite topical for that because of Pokemon Go being released recently.
Yes, very good way of actually accelerating. It's the best thing to accelerate natural selection after the chainsaw and automobile.
Yes.
There was actually two guys who were tracing this Pokemon. They scaled the fence and then walked straight off the cliff.
Yeah, one girl was unfortunately run over in Melbourne chasing a Pokemon.
Yeah, so. They're just, you're not looking where you're going.
Yes.
But yeah, he liked bugs as a kid. He loved collecting bugs, he liked catching them, hence the whole got to catch them all thing, where that idea comes from. and as a teenager he became interested in video games, particularly Space Invaders. And so he sort of, one day he watched two people playing their Game Boys with, because back in those days, kids, there was no wireless Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. You had to actually have a cable. I know, back in the deep dark 90s. And he sort of visualised a bug walking across the cable as they were playing, and he went, there's a plan, catching little animals and then having them compete. Genius. And yes, so he's...
Right. Now, another lady who got her chance at fame later in life, an autistic lady.
Autistic lady, Susan Boyle, you may know, all know what happened.
Yes.
In terms of...
Did she win Britain's Got Talent, or...?
She came second. But she's a lot more popular and a lot richer than the people who came first.
Yes, well, she did a beautiful rendition of that song. What is it, I Have a Dream, doesn't it?
I Have a Dream is the one she sang in her audition, yes. Yeah. She found solace in her church choir. She grew up, had singing lessons, she because that's what she was interested in, and that's what she found comfort in, is singing. And so was and of course in growing up in the 50s in remote Scotland, in rural Scotland.
Yes, there would have been a lot of help for an autistic person there.
Not really.
No?
No.
I know how much help was for you growing up through the 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Help was a little few and far between in suburban areas.
Yeah, it was.
People knew about autism, but they didn't... They knew it existed, but the treatments and therapies for it were very rudimentary.
But yeah, a lot of it, in fact, was because of what were called refrigerator mums. Basically parents who were cold and sort of ignored their children, and apparently that caused autism, which obviously, as a parent, you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, I'm doing my best here.
Yeah, well, when you guys were diagnosed, they said looked at me and basically said it had to come from somewhere. And I know the problems I had growing up. And, you were just considered, because you process information differently.
That's right.
And because you do process information differently, you're treated like you're dumb.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, and for example, Grandin, I can see things and issues that other people don't notice.
Yeah.
And then people don't listen to me, and then whatever I said would happen happens. And I'm like, oh, yeah, great. It's like, yeah. So, yeah, that's exactly what happens. So, yeah, autism is both, as an autistic person, it is both a curse and a blessing. Yep. In a lot of places.
Alright, who got born?
Who got born? James Baldwin.
James Baldwin. What did James Baldwin do? He was civil rights?
He was civil rights. He actually was an author and moved to France because he wanted to write about the poor treatment that people of African American background were getting at the time in the 50s and 60s. But he moved to France because then you would have more freedom of speech. But he was really instrumental in getting the civil rights movement happening. We know of people like Malcolm X and
Martin Luther King Jr.
Martin Luther King Jr. But he was really behind the scenes, really trying to rally support and really trying to get the Congress to, I'm about to say Parliament.
Yeah, but I can see...
to talk about it.
See, I can see problems arising now. Because there are a minority of Muslims in the world creating problems, all Muslims are being branded.
Yeah.
I get back to young Will Wheaton take on the world. Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
That's it.
Just
don't be a dick towards anybody else.
Yeah. Golden rule, do unto others.
Yep.
I mean, yes, it's in the New Testament, but it's in a lot of other religious scriptures. Yes. And it's just a good rule to be.
Yes. treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Now we've got Wes Craven.
1939, died recently actually.
Yes.
Last year. Yes, very talented guy. Kevin Smith. Now you probably may have heard of the movie Clerks. He was instrumental in making that happen. That was in the 90s, and also Clerks 2.
Yes, yes, I've heard of Clerks too, but I knew that Clerks existed, but I didn't.
Yeah, well,
I knew that it had to exist because I'd heard of Clerks too, so there had to be.
Clerks, yes, but Clerks, yes, no, that's both of those movies, as well as many other things. You may not have heard the name, but you'll know the face. And
yes,
also,
he's one of those actors. I like that. You get actors in movies, and there was a lot of them through the 50s and 60s, even the 40s. And you know, every other movie you'd see this actor having a small part, being in the background of this movie, but he'd turn up. And you know, every third movie you saw had this actor in it. You knew the face instantly. You knew the face, but you never knew the name.
Yeah, you just couldn't yeah. Kevin Smith is one of those people. Not one of those people is Sam Worthington. We've all probably have heard of them, and you may have heard of a little movie he was in called Avatar.
Yes.
Yes.
So 1976, young Sam was born.
Yes.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but 1970 for Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith. Sorry, I didn't. Yes, 1970.
Yep.
Kevin Smith.
All right. Well, that's us for another show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like us, hit like. If you don't like us, inflict us on your friends. And we'll see you on the dark side. He's got cookies.
So does he. Bye.